I'm Joe Hale, and this is SEO in 2025 Additional Insights.
Joe, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2025?
So my additional insight for SEO in 2025 is for e-commerce websites to prioritize collections and category pages over pretty much everything else.
What's the difference between a collection page and a category page?
A collection of the categories, in my eyes, is pretty much the same thing. Really, what I'm trying to differentiate the difference is between a collection or category and a product page or a longer form kind of content piece. So really, it's the pages where you're talking about a selection of products rather than like I said, longer form content or a product.
So why does this leave revenue on the table for e-commerce sites?
So I think there is a massive missed opportunity here. I work with a lot of e-commerce brands, a lot of fashion brands in particular, and actually what they have is an over-reliance on their own brand name or the names of their products, if their products go viral or if they perform particularly well. But actually what they're missing out on is people searching for a type of product, but not necessarily searching for them. So for example, it could be that someone is looking for a wedding dress, but not from a particular brand. Now, that is a massive opportunity because the way that people search isn't always brand led. In fact, usually it's the other way around. And why I think that's leaving revenue off the table is because people are so reliant on their brand name. They're not paying attention to the people that aren't searching for the brand, but also they're just not targeting those keywords. And actually, they're not really identifying what people are looking for that might be in line with their products. So it could be that they have a selection of dresses, but actually those different dresses can be worn for all different events, all different occasions. They have all different styles. That's what people are searching for, but they're just not connecting the two.
Wedding dress is obviously a massive opportunity for sites that sell wedding dresses, but I would think it's a highly competitive keyword phrase. How do you know if you have a legitimate opportunity to be targeting a keyword phrase like that?
Yeah, so of course, wedding dresses are extremely competitive. I think the first stage is obviously you've got keyword research, looking at what people are searching for, but it's also trying to understand like what is it around, like using wedding as an example, what around weddings are people searching for that might have less search volume. We recently won the best use of search in fashion award, and a lot of that was to do with wedding. And actually, it's not just that people are looking for wedding dresses. They're looking for wedding guest dresses. They're looking for mother of the bride and groom dresses. They're looking for honeymoon dresses, engagement dresses, all these different terms around it. So it's trying to expand upon that and actually work out, well, even though they can be used for this one particular thing, that kind of cluster of keywords all falls within the same remit. So how can we target all those different searches? It could be through different pages. It could be that you have one main page and target those various terms. But really, it stems from keyword research, and ultimately everything should be data-led in what you're doing. It's just that sometimes you need to think outside of just that kind of top-level keyword.
So what comes first then? Is it the long-tail keyword phrase that's less competitive and related to the core target phrase that you're intending to target in the future that you target first?
Joe, it really does depend by the brand and kind of what they're targeting. Like typically, I might start with like the most like top level keywords. So it could be wedding guests, just because it's an easy place to start and kind of go from there. I think some of it does come down to like your understanding of the business and the products and the brand that plays into it, as well as actually talking to the brand and working out who are buying these products, what sort of events are they going to be wearing them for in case of fashion. So it really does depend. I think you can't go wrong starting really top level and then digging deeper than that, rather than kind of going like longer tail first, because then you might miss out other areas.
And by digging deeper, I'm imagining that you're talking about targeting these longer tail keyword phrases on subcategories, on other category type pages.
That's exactly it. And I think that plays into your first point about things can be super competitive. So you could have a dress brand that wants to sell wedding dresses, but again, it's super competitive. So what about subcategory pages that can play a part into that? It's also understanding, like, especially around events and weddings, you know that someone looking for a wedding dress might also be looking for their friends for a wedding guest dress or for bridesmaids dresses. So if they're to come through the site through a bridesmaid guest search term, the chances are they're going to be interested in the other products and navigating through the site that way as well. So I think the subcategory build is, again, a massive missed opportunity and something we've been working really closely with our clients on.
So what metrics do you use to benchmark the opportunity against competitors with to actually determine if you have a likelihood of ranking for that keyword phrase?
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult because it depends what brand you're working with, what client you're working with. We've been very fortunate to work with some amazing brands that have kind of like really authoritative sites that have been built over the years, but need some direction. So I think it then comes down to like trying to understand like the domain authority and kind of where you sit within your like existing remit. So looking at like your existing keyword rankings and kind of looking at like who's ranking roughly around you. You can kind of dig deeper into like competitor analysis. There's some brands you're always going to struggle to rank above, but then there's these smaller opportunities where you can rank above them because they're not taking advantage of it. So again, it kind of comes down to like the keyword research level to begin with, obviously looking at domain authority as a metric, but doing some competitor analysis in regards to like what they're targeting that you're trying to target. So even looking at like keyword density, it can be quite manual, but looking at keyword density, the pages they've got, the positions they're ranking for, starts to give you an idea of like, where can we take advantage? Where is going to be too much of a push? But also what are the gaps that our competitors aren't taking advantage of?
Keyword density isn't a phrase that I've heard much recently. It used to be talked about 10 plus years ago, really, in SEO. People tend to talk about more right naturally now, and Google understand the context behind things now. Well, why are you using that phrase now? Is it still relevant in terms of optimizing a page?
I would say it is relevant. So when I'm talking about keyword density, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a particular keyword needs to be listed X amount of times. It's more about, I suppose it's a mix between keyword density and keyword variety. Do we have the various keywords that we want to target within the page? Of course, it needs to be written naturally. And I'm not saying go in and just start spamming keywords in there because that is definitely not the route we want to go down. But if we know that there is room to play around with the content, expand upon it, whilst also targeting the terms, that's what we should be doing. I think it's about using those keywords as a bit of a guide in terms of like, what do we want to write about? What are people searching for and how do we target that? There is no set number of keywords that we're ever looking to kind of target. But I think from a perspective, especially from competitor analysis, it's always interesting to see, well, if we're trying to target this sort of keyword group and our competitors only mention it once on the H1, but they have no on-page copy, but then this competitor has mentioned it like various keywords 3 times within the copy, then at least we have a gauge of what people are doing. I've seen it before as well, especially for longer form content. You can start to get an idea of if they're producing content with X amount of keywords that are related, do we try to align with that slightly? Just then we know that we can be there or thereabout if we're trying to compete.
And what about type of content and volume of content on these category pages? Because categories obviously have lots of different products on them, and if you have too much content above, you're going to be pushing products down below the fold, and obviously if you have it down below, then search engines might not treat it as significantly as they would content further up. So I mean, what's the ideal position of the content and how much content are you looking for?
I wish I could give you an exact number of words and everything, but I just don't think there is. I think actually a lot of what we're seeing sometimes is dependent on the brand itself, especially with like fashion brands. It's the aesthetic behind the brand and the website and how that plays out. Typically, I don't think it needs to be excessive. I've seen some category pages before with so much content that, again, if you put it at the top, it drowns out all the products. That's definitely not what we want to do. But then at the bottom, it can look kind of super spammy as well because it's just like a long form piece of text. There's no right or wrong answer. I think if you're looking at like 2-3 paragraphs, if it's beneficial content, I think that's good. I would focus more on like if what you're writing is beneficial to the user and it gives you options or like an opportunity, then internally link across other pages, amazing. But don't write for a specific length. Write based on what that product category is. Is this beneficial? Can you interlink between other categories that could help guide a user? And that's where you kind of can't really go wrong.
How do you drive authority to these categories? Is it just about internal links, or do you try to build external links to the category pages as well?
So you definitely can build external links. It's something that we don't touch on massively. We do a lot of internal linking structure here. It's not that I don't believe in building backlinks. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's a lot of authority that can be built. It's just that I think there's still a lot of outdated and spammy backlink practices, which we just try to avoid, and something that I personally am not a huge fan of. I think, say, if you went down more like the digital PR route, I think that's fantastic. I think that's definitely something you can do. And the other thing you can do as well is look at like broken backlinks, especially for e-commerce sites. The chances are there's loads of old products that just aren't redirecting properly. That's definitely opportunity as well. But I think something you can kind of control now is definitely like the internal linking structure, as something that we do a lot with our clients.
Should e-commerce sites have blogs in general as well, or as blogs not as valuable as they used to be? I'm thinking of as another place, a different place to be publishing content, and perhaps an opportunity to target non-immediate purchase-orientated keyword phrases.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of value in blog content. I think that the way that some people view blog content is more about, well, what clicks or what visibility we're getting, rather than is it actually relevant to our target audience. I think there is a massive opportunity. I think it can be good, but I would not prioritize it over looking at something like collection and category pages. I would prioritize that so we know that people are searching for these products to buy, put our efforts into that, but then build up blog content to help supplement that. So it could be informative pieces. It could be from the brand itself. I think you should also sprinkle in stuff that's not SEO related within your blog content, that's more just branded pieces, brand led, build that brand affinity. I think it's just about trying to find that right balance between, is it actually relevant to the user, or are you just doing it to try to get clicks and views, and visibility, when actually it's not actually going to result in any sort of revenue generation.
So if you've taken on a new client that maybe has 1,000 categories and subcategories, how do you determine which category to focus on to begin with?
Yeah, good question. So typically the way that we would do it is reviewing their current setup, or not their setup, but their current performance in Google Analytics and Google Search Console. This gives us a really good idea of where they're already performing well for. Typically the clients we work with, even if they're performing well for something, there's things that can be changed to improve it. A lot of what we want to focus on is actually adding and optimizing for what's already there, rather than taking things away, unless you feel like it's unnecessary. But it would really be looking at like what's already performing well that we can maybe like dial up a bit and just put a bit more focus on. That way we can then start to prioritize things, because if we know that something's already doing well and already driving X amount of revenue, if we can just improve that slightly, then we know that that's going to move the needle, and then it kind of buys us some time in terms of doing the rest of the collection pages. You can flip it the other way around and think like, well, what's something that's not doing well? How can we improve that? And that's great. But I think typically with any SEO campaign, you want to kind of hit the ground running and look at what can we do to move the needle ASAP. And then we can kind of work on other stuff down the line.
And do you look at seasonality and actually what's likely to be coming up in terms of fashion trends if you're working for a luxury fashion e-commerce site, for example? So would you look perhaps even several months in advance and perhaps change the internal linking structure of the site to attempt to actually promote the pages and get Google to crawl and index higher the pages that are likely to be more popular in the future?
Definitely. So you can put together like keyword research based on like the search volumes based on like a month-on-month basis. Of course, it's historical data and you can't always predict trends for the following year, but at least it gives you an indication of when things are going to start to peak. For example, when we've worked with like big retailers before, it might be a case of, right, we know sunglasses are going to start to peak in May. Therefore, we really want everything ready by February. We can look at internal links, adding them within like March time, perhaps. So you can kind of have everything planned out to a rough level based on that seasonality when you look at kind of like how things peak and trough. I'm trying to think of an example. We've just obviously had like winter, we're going into summer, but for one of our brands, again, there's a big focus on wedding guests. And we know that kind of as soon as the new year hits, that's when people are thinking, right, the wedding's this year, let's focus on that. So we got everything ready a few months prior, just so like as soon as that search interest is there, we're in a position to take advantage of that. Same as we've got a brand that really kind of specializes in running. We knew that as soon as December is over and everyone stopped eating chocolate, a lot of people were going to look to start running again. And we got everything ready so that when that running kind of spike starts to increase, especially as we get into like London Marathon in April and stuff, we're in a strong position to take advantage of that. And you've hit that on the head in regards to like internal linking structure. You can play around with that as the year goes on, just to kind of prioritize specific pages.
So it's interesting your example with sunglasses. So if, for example, you knew that number of searches for sunglasses were going to go up significantly in May, and you used the example of maybe having everything ready by March. So is 2 months a good rule of thumb to actually start to change your internal linking structure to try and get Google to actually look at that and actually consider it and actually change the SERPs within that period of time?
Yeah, I think anyone that works in SEO will know that there's no set time in regards to this. I think that 2 to 3 months gives you a nice bumper. I've seen examples where you can put things live with like a week in advance and they still see really positive results. It's just more about kind of future-proofing yourself really and trying to be in the best position that you can be. I think giving it a couple of months is a nice bumper. It could be a month, it could be a week, but if you can buy yourself a little bit more time, then I definitely would.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
If an SEO is struggling for time, I would honestly suggest stop focusing on blog content so that you can focus on category and collection pages for now. Again, not that I don't believe there's value in blog content, I do, but I think that a lot of people see it as an easy win where we can gain traffic when actually the traffic that's going to generate revenue is from people searching different product categories. So for me, it would be a case of deprioritizing blog content, look at what people are searching for in regards to like your product range that they then might convert, really focus on building out those collection pages and then use the blog content after to help supplement that. You can always internally link between the two as well.
Joe Hale is founder at Verdi Digital, and you can find him over at verdidigital.co. Joe, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2025.
Thank you, David.
I've been your host, David Bain, and you've been listening to SEO in 2025 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original podcast, video series, and book. Find out more at SEOin2025.com.